We're talking about missions today, and it's my heart beats for missions. My passion is missions. And our scripture today is Mark 16:15. He said, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature." That is what he said. And he wrote the Bible to all of us. So he didn't say, "Go pastor and preach the word." He didn't say, "Go missionary and preach the word." He didn't say, "Go Sunday school teacher and preach the word." He said, "Go preach the word." So it meant all of us. We're all missionaries. When we accept the Lord, we become a missionary to one who is supposed to preach the word of God. You know, we can all we can recite John 3:16. We all know that one. But John 3:17 says, God sent his son into the world not to judge the world, but to save the world through him. Keep reading around these scriptures. He wants to save the world, and we're part of that. I thank you. This church supported my family when we left for Africa and served God as a missionary on the continent in the country of Kenya. And we served there 10 years and then 4 years Africa at large. So we served a long time in Africa and loved it and enjoyed it, but it was hard. It was very hard. It was stinking hard. It was awful. I cried. My girls cried. It was tough. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Being a missionary is a hard thing to do. You have to sell everything. My grand piano, my custom van, my hot tub, my amazing house, it all went so that I could go to Africa. It was hard for my girls to adjust. There's no fast food. There's no Walmart. You know, you can't go to Walmart, but you can go on safari and see the animals. I mean, it's not like the zoo. You just drive around and find them. Learning a new language, a new culture, in a third world country, living there is very hard. It's difficult for my children to adjust. It was hard. The very hardest thing was leaving my daughter here. She was in college. My oldest daughter was in college. Leaving her and going 10,000 miles away. That was the very hardest thing about going to missions. It was tough. It was hard. We had cobras in our yard. We were robbed. Life was hard. It was a good day when the electricity and the water and the phone all worked on the same day. When I said my lines were down, I could go out on the road and see the lines on the ground. I mean, the lines were down. They were down. And they could stay down for months. I mean, we used dial-up. Anybody know what that is? Dial-up. Remember dial-up? Okay, and most of the time there was no internet. They teased us and asked us how we were going to prepare for Y2K. My husband said, we live Y2K every day. It's not a big deal. That's what life was in Africa. No air conditioning, no heating when it was cool in the summer months. Your summer months, it was cold at my house. And my winter, my Christmas I was sweating and no air conditioning, and I was cooking that turkey. But it was hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to learn to drive on the wrong side of the road with the steering wheel on the wrong side of the car, and it was in like demolition derby kind of driving. My daughter, my middle daughter, when she got back to America, she failed her driving test 3 times because she learned to drive in Kenya. So, and they just do a rolling stop. So she kept doing rolling stops, and they just kept failing her. I said, you have to stop at the stop sign. Well, they didn't. Daddy didn't. I mean, that's the way you drove in Kenya. So it was hard. But when we came back, things had changed. People were going to the gas station, pumping their gas and driving off. We didn't know you could pay at the pump. I mean, it was a new. My kids didn't know what an ATM was. I mean, they never. The world changed while we were gone. So much changed. We had bars on our windows and doors. We had where we could lock ourselves in if we were being robbed. And there was one night that the compound was being robbed, and my youngest daughter and her friends were at my house alone. And they locked the gates, they locked the doors, and they hid like they were supposed to do, like we had taught them to do. And God spared us. There was hard times. But there's never been a day, there's never been a minute, never been a moment that he wasn't in it. He took care of us. He provided for us. People prayed for us when we were in danger and they didn't even know it. They were 10,000 miles away in the middle of the night. They were praying for us. I was caught in the middle of a riot and could have been killed, and they banged up our Speed the Light vehicle. And they were coming at me because they killed a man in front of me. They put a tire around him, put gasoline in it, and killed him right in front of me because they thought there had been some babies stolen during the night and sacrificed to voodoo. I got caught in the middle of that. A guy was behind me who was driving with me, following me. He had all the luggage for my team, and he backed up and went around and went through Nairobi, but I had taken the shortcut through the slum. And he went around and went down through Nairobi, and it takes another hour to do it that way, but I wanted to get home quick. And I did get home quick because the Lord transported me, that Speed the Light truck, without one dent in it. He transported me to my gate of my compound. And I was sobbing. I was hysterical. I couldn't drive. I couldn't control myself. And the gate guard started calling for JR. And he met me at the car and helped me to get inside. And our phone rang. JR got me in his recliner that we had brought from America, and our phone rang, and we could always tell a certain ring, and then it would hang up, and then and then it would ring again, and then it would hang up. We knew it was a call from the United States. That's the way they always did. So JR went over. He wrapped me in an Afghan that I had there, and he ran over and answered the phone, and it was a man, a country preacher in New Tazewell, Mike Vandergriff. He said, JR? This is Mike Vandergrift. Do you know who I am? He said, yes, I know who you are. He said, well, I want to know what's wrong. I've been awake since 4 o'clock on my face, literally on my face, about your safety and the safety of your family. What is going on? He prayed. God spared me so I could tell you. He can do anything. No matter what he asks you to do, he can take care of you. He can go, he'll put his angels about you. He'll provide. He'll open the doors. He'll shut the doors. He will transport you if he has to get you out of danger. That's the God we serve. That man prayed. He was obedient to pray when I needed the prayer. When God had to literally move me out of a bad situation. You know, I can tell you all the bad stuff. I could talk bad stuff all day long. It was a nightmare. There was one nightmare after another. Stuff happened, but we did have some fun along the way. But God, we would do good news crusades. We'd bring teens from America, and every crusade we built a church with it. And we would put new converts into the church. We did 127 churches that way. When teams weren't there, JR and I would go out on our own and start churches. We started 45 churches in Kenya, just doing the crusade ourselves. You see, you get a gaudy white woman like me on the platform, and amongst all those amazing Kenyan, wonderful people, you get a gaudy white woman singing in Swahili, getting the words right. I drew the crowd. JR was an amazing preacher. He preached to them, and God saved them. We had this thing going. So we just kept doing it. In between our teams, we started 45 churches. JR himself, that I know of, he wouldn't tell me how many were saved if I wasn't with him. But I know of was more than 35,000 people that he led to the Lord in the time we were in Africa. And you are a part of that. You're a part of that. He started the Royal Ranger program in Kenya. They had to rewrite the program because there's no Smokey the Bear, and there's the wrong kind of knots and the wrong kind of wild animals. So we had to completely rewrite it. But even though he's been in heaven 13 years now, it is still spreading all over East Africa. All the East African countries are doing Royal Rangers. They rewrote it and put girls in it too, and that's what they're doing. And it's an amazing program that is just spreading. just spreading, even though he's been with Jesus 13 years. His work keeps going. He started a mission program where the missionaries, where the pastors and raising up missionaries among the churches in Kenya to be missionaries to the unreached tribes of Kenya. Instead of us Mzungus, us white people, going, it was easier for them to adapt. They knew the languages, they knew the people, they knew the culture. They were used to living in the way they lived and the way they had to, whether it was huts, whether it was whatever it was. So JR raised up a mission program, started a mission program, and that is still going today. They're still sending missionaries from their churches to the unreached people of Kenya. And when all have heard, the Lord's coming back. It's getting closer and closer and closer. Yes, it was hard, but someone somewhere is depending on you to do what God has called you to do. We did what God called us to do. You've got to do what God's calling you to do. You do what you're asked. I sang in Swahili, and it just drew the crowd. Sometime if a witch doctor or the Catholic priest who hated us would camp around the edge of our crusade grounds, and they would try to get the people to not listen to us, and they would yell at them and yell at them. I could stand up and sing the Lord's Prayer in Swahili, and it would silence them. They could not speak anymore. They would leave because of that presence of the Lord was too strong. So the Lord used it. He'll use whatever you have. That's just having to learn a language. I worked with women's ministry. I was a national leader for them for 9 years while I was there. Worked with girls ministry. But my real heart, we did crusades everywhere. I worked. I didn't get to go with JR all the time because we had our 2 daughters. We took 2 daughters to Kenya with us. But there were street kids everywhere. In 1997, there was 250,000 street kids on the streets of Kenya. They were everywhere. They were begging. They were reaching in your car trying to grab something. They're starving. They're eating garbage. They're eating the rotten fruit thrown out of the market to try to stay alive. They're drinking from the water hose or drinking from a muddy ditch. They're on the street because their parents have died of AIDS, typhoid, cholera, or malaria. A lot of times they will have these other diseases and then get malaria and it takes them out because their body couldn't survive. So once the parents die, the children are on the street. And it was happening everywhere. We came home for furlough for 1 year. When I got back, there was 350,000 street kids on the street. But during that year that I was home, I raised $500,000 and built an orphanage. I went back and built an orphanage called Kenya's Kids Home for Street Children. JR, he said, I'm going to help you. I'm going to stand there. I'm going to I'll support you, but I can't be there. I can't be there to help you. You're on your own. So here it is, this gaudy white woman with an Asian contractor, a Kenyan general superintendent. It was amazing. There's a lot of stories, a lot of things that went on during that time that we'll share at another time. But because of this massive need for the children, we built this home, and so far we've been able to save more than 400 children from the street. A lot of the other missions built homes around the same time because the need was so great. And right about the time President Obama made a visit to the country where he was born, his grandmother lives there, and her street is paved. It's beautiful. She has a great house. Everything else has potholes, but her street is nice. But about that time, all of a sudden, thousands and thousands of street children disappeared. They were shipped out of the country, and many of them killed and gotten rid of because they didn't want that plight upon our country with Obama coming to see it. So it was a hard time. It's a difficult time, but we saved them. We saved as many as we could. There was one day, one boy came in. I have so many stories about them, I need to write a book. But one day, a boy named David, we call him Daudi in Swahili, and he came in. We took 3 in a week, maybe 4, from different street children gangs. We never took the whole gang because they would be stronger than we are. So we took different, one from this one from this one, and one from this one, so we had the advantage. So this one day, Daudi came in. His name was David, and he kept his head down a lot. He was very scarred from being burned. You can tell a scar from a burn, and then scarred from cuts. He is very scarred up and had a lot of open sores, running sores, so we doctored him. We gave him all, when we bring them in, we give them all showers, and we had outdoor showers. The men helped the boys, and the women helped the girls, and we shaved their head because of lice. They had worms in their stomach, fungus on their hands and feet. We just helped them. We just took them in, cleaned them up, gave them new clothes, and fed them. And this day, Daudi was very quiet, very shy, very wounded. You know how a dog that has been beaten, an animal that has been beaten will cowl down? That was him, because his life had been so hard. And so that I kept watching him. And when I had to leave that afternoon, because I lived an hour away, I had to leave that afternoon. I told the director, I said, watch him and check on him later tonight. I'm concerned about him. And so here's what he told me the next time I was there, and 2 days later, and he said, Mama, I must tell you this. I went in to check on Daudi, and he had taken his blanket off the bunk you gave him, and he was laying on the cold concrete floor. You see, the boys' dorm, just like the girls' dorm, open rafters, metal, concrete floors, block walls, windows with bars on them. It wasn't anything fancy, but I did paint everything in red, blue, green, and yellow, and give them a towel, and everything was in color coded, and it was very pretty. But he was laying on the floor with his blanket, and the director said, "You do not have to sleep on the floor. This is your bed." He said, "But I might soil it." You see, if they get comfortable, they get safe, they will relax, and they would wet the bed. And he said, no problem. We take it outside, we hose it, the sun dries it, we bring it back, and we do it again. He said, no problem. And so he looked at the director, and he said, "Is this the place you call heaven?" He said, "No, this is Kenya's Kids Home for Street Children." He said, "Is this what heaven's going to look like? I want to go there. I want to go there." He said, "No, it's much, much better than this. Much better than this." He's now a worship leader among the Turkana tribe where he was from. He had held on to big lorries, big trucks, all the way to Nairobi. On a fast day, I can get there in 8 hours. But it took him days to get to Nairobi. And he joined a gang because he was starving. And we took him into Kenya's Kids, and now he's a worship leader. He loves Jesus. You know, we had a team at one time that was witnessing in the Nairobi City Park. And so JR had his team there, and they ministered to a young man named John. He was a Maasai. Well, no Maasai was ever taken in the slave trade. They're ferocious. They're mean. No Maasai was ever taken as a slave. I don't know if you knew that. But this one, his name was John, and he enrolled in Bible school. He wanted to know everything he could know about Jesus. So some of us missionaries, we paid his enrollment. He just became so in love with Jesus, so in love with Jesus. He said, I must go home. And they said, why? He said, I must tell the paramount chief. He was over many groups of Maasai. He lived on Mount Loganat, which was a inactive volcano. He lived up on the side of Mount Loganat. That's where the paramount chief lived. And he said, I must tell him about this Jesus. I must tell him. He said, they will not listen. I said, he has sent word not to come. He has told me, stay away. He doesn't want his people to hear what I have to say. He has told me, but I have prayed, and God said, go. I'm going to go. And they said, they prayed over him, prayed for safety. But he started the trek up Mount Loganat. He started up. The paramount chief had people stationed everywhere. They were throwing big rocks at him. He was dodging rocks. He was dodging sticks. He kept climbing and kept climbing and kept climbing till he almost got to the Boma, the place where the paramount chief lived, where all their little houses were, their huts were. And there's a fence around it that has big thorns in the bushes that to keep wild animals out at night and to keep their cattle in and keep their cattle safe at night. So he got almost there, and they're throwing rocks at him. He's getting bruised, and he's getting cut, and he's getting banged up, but he kept going and kept going. And the paramount chief told him, do not come any closer. And all of a sudden, the women started screaming. The women started wailing because one of the wives of the paramount chief had been bitten by a black mamba. There's two kinds of snakes in Africa. There's deadly and there's poisonous. Poisonous is the cobra. The venom makes us, very, very sick, and some people die. The deadly are the ones that attack your nervous system, and within 10 minutes, your body completely shuts down and you die. The black mamba, there's green mamba, and I've been chased by those, but there's green mamba, and they're smaller, but their venom is just as strong. But the black mamba is ferocious and mean and big and long and ugly. It bit his wife. The attention went to the wife who's laying, convulsing on the ground, dying in front of them. And he said, Chief, can I pray? Yeah, she's dead anyway. She's dead anyway. So he got close, put his hand on her, and began to pray out loud, very loud, to his God, to our God. Within a few minutes, she stood straight up, went into her hut, and made tea for John and the paramount chief. The paramount chief listened to him, accepted the gospel, accepted Jesus, and there's an amazing revival started on the north part of the Serengeti Plains from that one person who said, I'm going. No matter how it hurts, no matter what it costs, no matter if I'm embarrassed, no matter if I'm hurt, no matter if I'm killed, I'm going. I'm going to do this. And the Lord made a difference. J.R. built the first church among the Maasai. Danny Rogers, would you stand up? And he was on the team that helped him. Danny was there. Thank you. Amazing revival had started in the top part of the Serengeti. It's very, very large, very, very large. And then it's began to spread, and God began to do what he wanted to do. It's hard to make a difference. It takes willingness, a servant's heart, a generous spirit, We have to give more than we've ever given before. Mother Teresa said, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. This team that's just returned has created many ripples. They have made a difference in Peru, and I applaud them today. I'm proud of them. I honor them for what they've done. Your prayers, your giving, your sending, you coming to Africa. Your pastor's been to Kenya. You coming makes a difference. You doing something makes a difference. You giving makes a difference. You praying makes a difference. It all goes together. Giving is not about making a donation. It's about making a difference. I don't know about you, but I want to make a difference with my life. I want to leave a legacy. I go back again in January, and they're wanting me to stay a whole month and do 3 different crusade things, 3 different projects in 1 month. So I'm going to need all your money. I'm just warning you, okay? I'm going to need all your money. So, but Jesus can come tomorrow. Jesus is coming soon. The signs of the times. In Matthew 24, read that later. It talks about the second coming, telling us what to watch for, telling us what's going to happen, telling us all the horrible things that are already happened and already passed. You look at the news, listen to the news just for a few minutes. Not too long, you'll get depressed. But listen to you'll see the signs of the time have already happened. It's already occurred. Jesus is coming soon. He is coming soon. It could be tomorrow. But one thing that scripture says is to take heed of yourself. Take heed of yourself, which is meaning make sure you are living right. Make sure there's no sin in your life. Make sure you're doing what God's called you to do. Take heed of yourself. Check yourself. Do it. Companies do inventory regularly. We must do inventory of ourselves regularly. Are we doing what God's telling us to do? Are we the call He has upon our life? Are we fulfilling that call? Are we really stepping out in faith? Are we really giving in faith? Are we really trying to make a difference with our life? We must do that. And a couple of years ago at Christmas, I was asked to go back to Kenya and do the women's ministry, which is Wanawake wa Kristo in Swahili, women's ministry convention. And there was a crowd here of 1,000. There was a crowd in front of me of 1,000, and there was a crowd over here of 1,000. It was more than 3,000 women. A lot of them had babies tied to their back. They were in their traditional garb from the Maasai tribe, the Turkana tribe, the Pokot tribe, all the different. We have 52 tribes in the country. The Kikuyu tribe are the real modern ones, and they like to mix their bright colors and be as bright and loud as they can, and they love it, and they love dressing up for church. It was an amazing sea of women, but God gave me a hard message for those women. I knew them. They knew me. I had hundreds of friends that I had worked with that were among the crowd from my years of being there. It was an honor to speak to them, but God gave me such a hard message. The Kenyans, once they give their life to Jesus, they get into it. They start coming regularly. They give something. If they don't have money to give, they'll bring a chicken. They'll bring some eggs. They'll bring something. They bring a head of cabbage. They'll bring something and give in the offering. You know, they're going to bring something, and they're going to sing, and they're going to dance until they're sweaty. They're going to beat the drum and the tambourine. They're going to be loud. They're going to be there, and they're going to be there every time. That's just the Kenyan way. That's who they are. They don't ever stop. But the Lord gave me a message that said, are you just going through the motions, or is Jesus inside your heart? Or do you have a personal relationship with Him? All this stuff you're doing is good, but it won't get you into heaven. If you don't have Jesus and have a relationship with Him, after the rapture and everybody goes, you'll still be here doing the church, doing the singing, doing the drum, because you will not go to heaven. It was silent. And they're never silent. It was silent. I said it again. If you don't have the relationship, you don't go through the pearly gates. If your name's not written in His book, He will say, depart, I never knew you. It's that black and white. We cannot color code this. We've got to tell it the way it is, because Jesus could come next week. We've got to tell it the way it is. So when I gave the altar call, I was so happy to see 52 women from all the different tribes gather and just sobbing and giving their lives new to the Lord. They said we had a relationship, but they got in a rut. We can get in the habit of going to church and giving our tithes and doing the things that we do. But if you don't have the relationship, you don't go to heaven. It's that. But I felt in my heart there was a lot more women that needed to come. It was very silent. It was very quiet, but the women at the altar were crying out, sobbing, and giving their lives back to Jesus and starting their lives over again. But I had to leave right after that service because it was getting dark, and it's not safe for a white person to be on the streets after dark. So I had to leave very quickly with the lady that traveled with me, and our driver was waiting on us. So I was grieved, and she said, that was an amazing altar call, 52 women. She had counted them for me. 52 women. I love it. I said, but there were so many more. I just kept feeling it, but there was no more time. The next morning when I got to the convention, my interpreter, who had interpreted for me, she was waiting. She was a Kenyan woman, a good friend of mine, waiting on the porch for me. She said, Mama, you must come quickly. I said, what is it? Your message yesterday was so hard. It was so hard. It hit the women hard. They kept talking about it. They kept talking to each other. They kept speaking of it. They kept coming back to it all afternoon, all evening during the meal. And last night, more than 200 more gave their heart back to Jesus and found the Lord as their Savior again. 252 people. But that was a hard thing to do. They're my friends. I hate to go to a friend and say, you're going to hell. I mean, that's not what you want to do. I mean, that's not the message. You want to do something nice, and it sounds good, and it sounds pretty, and I wanted to wear pretty clothes and do all the right things. But that's not what God said do. He said, tell them, because they had missed it. Don't sit here and miss it. Don't sit in these pews and miss heaven. Pastor preached something like this message on two weeks ago. He preached this. Don't miss heaven. Take inventory of you. We must share the good news of Jesus, be winning the lost. There is only one thing better than going to heaven, and that's taking somebody with you. That's the only thing that's better. We're running out of time. Jesus is coming. We're running out of time. On my very first trip to Africa, I was on a Good News Crusade team. I was playing the keyboard and singing and just doing what they'd asked me to do on the trip. We did our work in Nairobi. A lot of people were saved. It was a crusade, and we sang, and we did everything they asked us to do, door-to-door witnessing. That's when I had tracts that cost a penny, and went to a group of women doing their laundry together, and 7 women gave their heart to Jesus using one BGMC tract that cost 1 penny. It makes a difference when you give to BGMC. 7 women. That was such an amazing experience for me. I was so excited. I didn't feel called to Africa, but I loved it, and I wanted to come back. I always loved Africa. I loved Tarzan and Jane. I loved Africa. I just, I wanted to go. I wanted to go see the animals. I wanted to go, I just wanted to do all of it. I'm not shy. So I was going to do that, and I just had a plan. And I had a plan to keep going on these crusades. And but after we finished our work, we went on safari. Oh, this is great. I'm staying in a tent. It's awesome. The tent had a shower in it. I mean, it was so cool. It was so cool. My idea of camping is Holiday Inn, so this was really cool. So we went out on safari. After we saw the animals a lot, we came close to a Masai Boma, the round area. They have a fence of those briars with big long thorns in it, and the houses were inside there. The chief and his different wives were inside, the whole thing. Well, when we pulled up, the leader of the team and the driver got out, and we could hear everything they said, and they walked over to the chief, who was sitting on a little bitty stool thing, and he was sitting there, and she asked the chief if we could talk to their people. And he said, about what? Why? And she said, about Jesus. God had a son named Jesus who came and died for our sins. We want to tell him that. He looked up and he said, we always knew there was a God. We call him Blue Sky. Didn't know he had a son. When did he come? And that through the interpreter, she told him over 2,000 years ago. He waited a minute, and he looked at her and said, why did you wait so long to come tell us? Why are we waiting? Why are we procrastinating? People are going to hell around us. Somebody needs to intercede for the lost. We need our passion that we had when we got saved. We need that passion for the lost renewed in our spirits. We need that passion to come upon us again, to renew it, that we will be soul winners. We will be do what God has called each and every one of us to do, to be soul winners, to talk to the girl at Walmart. Talk to the person who put your groceries in your car. Talk to the person at the laundromat. Talk to the people. So many people, I don't go to laundromats very often, but sometimes it's the people that are struggling the most are having to go to the laundromat to do their laundry. They're so beaten down and so weary. They need Jesus. You know, have you ever gone past a school, Jenny, one of the classes in your school, and the teacher asks a question and everybody knows the answer and they're almost out of their seat knowing the answer? We know the answer, but we're not telling it. God has called each one of us to be a missionary. You are a missionary. We've got to give, we've got to pray, we've got to go, we've got to speak up. We've got to speak up because we're running out of time. We're running out of time. He is coming back. He is coming back.